A little while ago I asked the question of what if the entire format of Dan was a commander? What would that look like? What would they do? So I made Amnesia, the Forgetful Fish, and I'm really happy with how they turned out, but it got me wondering, are there other formats we could commanderify? My first thought was Battle Bond, which is actually a set, not a format, but Battle Bond represents the format of Two-Headed Giant. Two-Headed Giant, what would that look like if it was a commander? Now, it makes sense to do something like, when you play this, you become two teams or something, and that's something you could maybe do, but it is a lot of rules implication because you're actually changing from format to format, and that's not what I want to do. I just want a commander that brings elements of that format into the game. So I asked myself, what are the important elements of Two-Headed Giants? You take simultaneous turns with your partner. I don't think I'm gonna do that one. I don't think that works. I don't think it's necessary either. You could just take your turn, then take your turn. It's rarely gonna really impact things to be able to do them simultaneously. You could attack together, which does have some implications. You attack and then your opponent has to block that entire board at once, not just one of you individually, but really, I take my turn, I attack, then you take your turn, then you attack. We both end up attacking the same person. Is that really any fundamentally different than how it is in Two-Headed Giant? You and your partner can block the same attack. Ooh, now this actually gets really interesting, especially in the concept of commander. If I could designate a teammate and say, if you attack me, we might consolidate forces so you don't have a good attack anymore. You don't know if we're gonna decide to team up and have our two 4/4s block your 8/8. Now, I think it's interesting to let the player choose and not force them to come along with you. That's not really in the spirit of cooperation, but that threat might still have interesting gameplay implications. The other really important thing about Two-Headed Giant, especially if we're representing it via Battle Bond, is that there are cards that specifically refer to your team. If you're not playing Two-Headed Giant, your team means you. But if you are playing Two-Headed Giant, then it's you and the other player that's on your team. So can we bring that into the game? Well, once again, I don't want to actually say you and target player are on a team, because again, that has so many implications. Does it mean that if one of you dies, you both die? Does you have, when one of you takes damage, you both take damage? It gets really messy to have that rule added in the middle of a commander game. Instead, I just want spells and abilities to consider them to be part of your team. Can I do that? Can I have a creature that says spells and abilities consider target player as your teammate? I don't know. So I looked at the precedent. Consider, never been used. Treat, never been used. Refers to, has never been used. But count has been used. Now, it hasn't been used to represent what I'm trying to do. But if we look at a card like Diligent Farmhand, it says that it counts as Muscle Burst for the sake of counting how many copies of Muscle Burst you have in your graveyard. Which is a super weird effect, and it's old magic, and they probably wouldn't use this wording ever again, but it's precedent, so I'm taking it. So with this, I came up with the body text for a first draft. When card name enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. Until card name leaves the battlefield, spells and abilities count you and that player as teammates. So this shouldn't impact any other rules of the game, just if a card says, if your team controls, or each player on your team does, or whatever. But it also does one other interesting thing. See, if you're on a team together, you can't attack each other, right? That wouldn't make any sense. And we're not doing that, because again, we're not on a team together. But spells and abilities call us teammates. So what does that mean? It means we're not opponents, as far as cards that target opponents, or creatures opponents control, or whatever. That is some interesting fringe upside. That's like a pretty interesting defensive tool. Did I just make a white card? See, originally I wanted this to be like the Battle Bond commander, and so I wanted it to be an Ozra. I love Ozra. They're so cool, and they're on like 5 cards. It sucks. Anyway, Ozra are red and black. Well, except for the only legendary Ozra, which is black and blue. I don't know, you figure that one out. Either way, this is not a Grixis card, or a black card, or a red card. Maybe it's a blue card, but I don't want it to be a mono blue Ozra. And also, I just did that with Initio. Maybe this could become a series. Maybe this is the mono white entry of such and such format as your commander. I like it. And it is two-headed giant we're representing. How about this commander be a white two-headed giant? That makes sense. Should they have a subtype? I don't know. I feel like I'm depicting this character as kind of peaceful, like you want to help them out. You want to be on their team. Someone who's not manipulating you, they're just actually really affable. So I don't think they're really a warrior. They could be like a monk or something, but there are no monks in Battlebond proper, so that doesn't really feel like it works to me. And also, a lot of the creatures in Battlebond only had one type. You got people who were just an angel, or just a demon, or even just a human. Not a human warrior, not a human assassin, not a human soldier. They're just a guy. So this humble, affable giant isn't a warrior or anything else, really. They don't have some elaborate title of what they count as. They're just a giant. I think overall, the card works. Like, it doesn't do a lot, but it does really say, hey, we're playing kind of a different game. Are you okay with that? Now, what's interesting is it doesn't force your opponents into a team. And this was intentional, largely because you might not be playing 4-player. So you can't have 2 teams. You might be wondering, hey, does this work if you're playing 2-player? Technically it does, and it's probably actually really scary in 2-player, because you can still attack each other. You can't really do the blocking thing anymore, but you would still be protected from cards that have your opponent in them. If you run your deck with no your opponent cards, and your opponent probably does, might actually be a pretty interesting tool. Other than that, I made them 4 mana. I feel like they want to come down kind of mid-game when there's actually bodies sitting on the table and not really before they impact combat. And I figured their actual role on the battlefield is to be a blocker, either for you or for your new teammate. So I gave them an asymmetric stat line of 3-8. Without further ado, here is Gomo Twin Protectors. Gomo Twin Protectors is a 4-mana, 3/8 white giant. When Gomo Twin Protectors enters, choose target player. For as long as you control Gomo, spells and abilities count you and that player as teammates. They don't count you as opponents. Whenever a creature your opponents control attacks you or one of your teammates, that creature can be blocked this turn by creatures you and your teammates control, as though their controller is the defending player. And that's it. Thanks for watching my video. This is pretty clearly a sequel to my Dan video, and I think it's actually a pretty fun idea. So if you have any other ideas for what would work as a format as a commander, I'd love to hear it. So far all I can think is like commander as a commander, and that seems silly because you're already playing commander. You could also do like Oathbreaker, but that also feels silly because like, I guess it's just like a planeswalker that says this could be your commander. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem that interesting. Like, if you want to play Oathbreaker, go play Oathbreaker. What are you playing commander for? I don't know. And other than that, formats usually don't change the rules very much. They mostly just change what cards you're allowed to play. So, I don't know. That's all I've got for today, but I'm going to definitely be racking my brain for what a green, red, or black format commander could look like. Have a good night, everyone, and I'll catch you next time.